To go to some breaking news, the two students at Morehouse are speaking about their incident with Atlanta Police Department.
Thank you. On Sunday morning, I gave Tanaya Pilgrim a call. My office had alerted me to the fact that there was a terrible incident that had happened the night before. And during that call, I asked her how she was, and I asked her to tell me what happened. And what she recounted was one of the most harrowing experiences I've ever heard. And after I put down the phone, I was totally shaken by that, and outraged, and angry. And I'm here today in support of Tanaya and Messiah, and I'm here today on behalf of the entire Spelman community, and to tell them that everyone in that community, our faculty, our staff, our students, our trustees, stand in solidarity with him. And I'm here today to tell them that we will not accept the kind of behavior on the part of law enforcement that they had to accept. Tanaya and Messiah, I am so sorry on your behalf that two fine young students of Spelman and Morehouse had to suffer in the way that you did. And we will make sure with all of our hearts and all of our energy that we do everything to make sure that these incidents like these don't happen again.
Thank you. We'd like to bring up the president, the 12th president of Morehouse College, David A. Thomas. President Thomas.
Thank you. It is sad that I have to welcome you to Morehouse's campus under these conditions and for these circumstances. I am here to voice my support for Messiah and Tanaya, but also I'm here not just because I'm president of Morehouse College, but because I'm also a father of two young black men close in age to Messiah. And I know every time they walked out of the door, when they lived with me, I felt the terror that something could happen to them as a result of the institutionalized and unconscious biases that still exist in our society, and that Morehouse College has been at the forefront of fighting for 153 years. I wrote to my students that this moment, not just what happened to Messiah and Tanaya, calls forth the reality that the world continues to need institutions like Morehouse and Spelman. And what we say at Morehouse is that Morehouse has been a candle in the dark for 153 years. And that darkness is the darkness of the biases that exist in our society and the inequalities. So this is a moment that I hope calls forth my students to become even more vigilant and committed to making a better world. And yesterday they led a march from not too far from here to Centennial Park. I support that as well. So with that, I'll just leave it to.
And I'm honored to, again, be a partner at the Davis Bozeman Law Firm, but we have colleagues who do great work in the civil rights realm. And one of them, a good friend of ours for many years, is Brother Chris Stewart. So we're, again, as a firm, we're looking forward to our firms combining our collective power to fight for justice along with these families and these communities. So I would like to turn it over to Brother L. Chris Stewart.
I'm attorney L. Chris Stewart, and it's my law partner, Justin Miller. And "2020 is about God trying to open people's eyes." That's really the only conclusion that I could come to. Because so many eyes have been closed for so long when it comes to civil rights and African Americans, that he is giving us so much turmoil and pain so that all of you finally open your eyes. White, old, young, rich, poor, whatever it is, eyes are being opened, even though it is with the destruction and pain of not just adults, not just families like George Floyd, who we fly out tomorrow to fight for that family, but for children. It's opening eyes of police chiefs, sergeants, lieutenants, beat patrol, who used to just ignore it, who used to say, oh, they're exaggerating, or just try and push it under the bush. But eyes are being opened. Because what you're seeing is it's not just adults. It's not just black males that it's happening to. Look at the Sandra Blands, and now look at this. And it's children. Children. Children that were treated as if they had just robbed a bank or shot up a church. And I use shot up a church because when we were in Charleston fighting for Walter Scott, that happened. And do you know how he was apprehended? With fast food and a smile. And politely put in handcuffs. And I remember sitting in my hotel room looking at the TV, stunned. But look at the reaction that happened for these children. So it's time for everybody to stop denying it happens. It's time for politicians to stop ignoring these ridiculous laws that protect excessive force. It's time for these departments that have policies that have so many loopholes that when Maryland are trying to hold someone accountable, there literally will be missing sentences from the policies and procedures purposely, so that if there's an extra elbow or a kick or whatever it may be, we can't get it. There's rules and regulations that they don't have to give statements like a regular criminal. They can wait with a cooling off period while they get their stories together, while they meet with the union, and then give a unified statement. You don't have to give the body cams to all of you. Y'all have to fight and subpoena them. That's for a reason. That's so that this can continue to happen. And it's just time for people's eyes to open. So we proudly represent this young lady and her family. And we're not going to stop till we get justice. I mean, you know, we're proud of what the chief did and the mayor did, but that's not enough. Firing right now, charging, that's still not enough. Even charging them, there has to be policing change. Why is that so hard? How many more examples do y'all need? What chief doesn't want to change a system that you clearly see is broken? And if a politician doesn't want to, then fine. It is just time to start voting people out of office. African Americans don't typically turn out in the mass that they could. Well, now you've awoken them. You want to see what a vote can do now? Stand up against trying to change. And we won't hear from you next election.
I think Chris said it all. The time for incidents like this is over. I mean, America is showing you that. The time is over. The change is coming, and it's here, and we're not going to stop fighting. Malley's firm, our firm, there are many others like us. We are not going to stop fighting. We're unified. We're together. Everything is different. It's a new day. And so we want everyone to know, including the politicians, the police departments, the people who are apathetic and not empathetic and are sitting at home thinking this doesn't affect me, so I'm not going to say anything. The time has come for you to stand up and help us make that change. So be a part of it or don't be a part of it, but the change is coming.
Hi everyone, I'm Tanaya Pilgrim, as you guys know now. I just want to say thank you guys for all the support you guys have given me and Messiah. This is the most traumatic thing that has ever happened, and I hope ever happens again in my life. I'm very shaken up. I don't even know how to act, what to do. I just can't stop thinking about if cameras weren't there or if they would have went a little bit further. I can't stop thinking about what could have happened. Like, it's all that keeps crossing my mind. Yeah, like, and I guess I'm sorry you guys even had to see something like that occur. Like, it's disgusting, and like, that's all I have to say. Thank you guys.
As you all know, not only was Messiah accosted, abused with excessive force, he also went to jail and spent the night in jail after having to go to the hospital. And he has criminal charges. And so what we know is that an African-American man that has been arrested, it impacts their life choices, their life options. So the very arrest of Messiah he's going to have to deal with the rest of his life. And so with that, this family has reached out, and we have been able to secure one of Atlanta's finest criminal defense attorneys who volunteered to handle the criminal matter pro bono, Attorney Gary Spencer. And you all would know Attorney Spencer from the Basil Ellaby case, the I-85 bridge. Gary was a part of that legal team that secured Basil Ellaby from what looked like certain incarceration. And so I'd like Gary to come up and speak briefly about the criminal charges and what he and his firm will do in representing Messiah regarding the criminal charges. Gary?
Good afternoon. We are thankful that there was technology, quite frankly. It seems as though many of these cases turn on whether or not someone had a video camera to show what happened. We are here to help Messiah get through this without any sort of future problems on his record or anything like that. And I want to talk to folks who have been calling me and other people about what I can do, what I can do. Well, this is your time to learn about anti-racism, quite frankly. And so if you want to know what you can do, think about your ability to affect change in an anti-racist way. And I don't mean just individuals, I mean structures, because we all know that the fact that a black person might run a corrupt system doesn't make the system any better. But we are here to help Messiah, and we thank you for being present as well.
During yesterday's press conference with the mayor and the chief, they both apologized. I'm curious to know whether your clients accepted that apology or have a response to it.
We'll take questions in a moment. I'd like for Messiah and Messiah's father to speak briefly. And I'd like to say I made a decision about wearing this Black Lives Matter. And I decided to wear it because right now in America, and for the longest, black lives have not mattered. And what we saw happen to these young people, again, underscores the reality. And I want to double down on what Attorney Spencer has said regarding anti-racist work. Our issue is not a couple of bad apples. Our issue is that there is a culture and is rooted in white supremacy. It's rooted in black lives not mattering. And that is what the work that is required to be done. And that, in all reality, has to be done largely by white citizens. And they have to embrace that work and decide that white supremacy will not be the order of the day, that it will not be the pillars that hold up the American way of life. And until that's done, we'll keep having these press conferences. We'll keep having good, promising young people traumatized by this system. And so we want to be crystal clear that as we fight for justice for these families, that we're also encouraging our white citizens to step up and engage in that anti-racist work to dismantle, to confront white privilege and white supremacy. Those are real, and they manifest themselves with the loss of life, the loss of options for our young people, for our children. And so when we see people going through the street with mayhem, everyone is so appalled, and everyone was applauding the police restraint. I think you should applaud the restraint of black people to have gone for so many years and been restrained. And now that some are no longer restrained, it is a matter of what we've been experiencing for too many years. And so these young people got caught up in a whirlwind, a perfect storm, as Mr. Young has said to me, regarding a setting of a curfew, then the militarization of the police force with the backing of the National Guard, with people who were not focused on how our young people get home safely, but instead making sure that they were going to get theirs back after squad cars were set on fire. So people got hurt on Saturday, not just property. And we as a firm are putting people over property, and we hope that the rest of America and the rest of Georgia and Atlanta will embrace that concept. Put black lives over your property. And until you do, folks will continue to rise up. We want to be very clear as it relates to these young people. We could say unequivocally, if you're protesting in their name on what happened to them, they want it done non-violently. So we want to say that unequivocally. So all of the young people who are out there, if you are protesting in their name as to what happened to them, they're asking that you do that non-violently, because what they don't want are any other young people exposed to the criminal justice system the way they had to be exposed. And with that, I'd like to bring up Mr. Charles Young, the father of Messiah Young, who's traveled here from Chicago, Illinois. Mr. Young.
Good afternoon. Peace, everyone. I come to you all in peace. First off, I want to thank my wife, our family, our extended family, the city of Atlanta, our family here at Morehouse, our family here at Spelman, the entire CAU for, number one, just embracing us. Number two, you did a lot to soften the blow, and that's very important. Third, I want to thank and absolutely acknowledge Messiah's young sisters. Someone spoke a little earlier about going out, trying to enjoy your day, and coming back home, and having the feeling of being through a war. Kind of imagine that, right? Imagine that as a parent. Imagine that as sisters, 3 young sisters that he has. That, for me, is the reason that we're here. We are fighting a war, right? It's a war of the mind. It's a war against a culture. It's a war to change a culture. But in addition to that, we've got to be strategic. As you said, black lives do matter, but there's a value put on these lives. There's a value put on the lives of every original person walking around that's under a threat. And we absolutely have to change that mentality. And we will. As you see, we have birthed somewhat of a revolution, somewhat of a war. There's a revolution of a mind happening, and there's a ton of friction. There's a war happening. We are strategizing for a war, a mental war, right? An opportunity to change the culture. I say this all the time. My wife's a teacher. She always talks about an opportunity for training. That's exactly what this is, an opportunity to train the mind. The mind changes, and then the physical changes after that. Understand that. Understand the importance of that, because without that, as my brother said, this is going to continue. We don't want to predict it continuing. We want to predict it changing. We want to put a limit on it. You got to put a limit on it. We've all got deadlines. This way of life, this culture, it's got a deadline. And that deadline is screaming right now. That deadline is screaming around the world. And it's quickly approaching. So please, I would ask everyone here, everyone that's aware of these issues, aware of these problems that exist, aware that in this world, in every nation, in every individual lives an opportunity to be retrained, an opportunity for change. But you have to understand that the value of that change. Without that, we're headed nowhere. Thanks.
With that, we'll have Messiah Young, a rising senior here at Morehouse, and as you can see, raised by two fine parents who love him as their oldest and only son. Messiah?
Greetings to you all. First and foremost, I'd like to start by saying how grateful I am to the entire Morehouse community and the entire Atlanta University Center, Clark Atlanta University, Spelman College, and Morris Brown as well. In this time of injustice, it feels good to know that I have a support system that understands the severity of this and understands that change does need to come. Secondly, to all the institutions worldwide, to anyone aware of this problem, aware of the mistreatment, the hostility, the just wrongdoing of what occurred on Saturday. To everyone that supports that and understands, thank you. It truly means something to me that I have a backing, you know, because honestly, this has probably been one of the hardest things that I've ever experienced in my life. With that being said, you know, it's great to know that so many people are aware of this. And at the end of the day, it's a blessing that I'm alive and here to talk with you, here to express just everything that's occurring at this moment. And that will continue to occur. This is a long fight. This isn't just about me. This isn't just about us. This is an entire generation that has to deal with brutality and injustice and wrongdoing for nothing because of the color of their skin or simply because what they preference, or like my father said, originality, you know? So at the end of the day, I am just very thankful for the support for you all, and we will get through this together. Thank you.
Chris and I are here to take any questions. Our clients won't be answering any further questions.
Mr. Davis, the charges that he's facing, what are those charges? Because I was under the assumption that they were dropped, sir.
Well,
Either one.
we want the reason that Attorney Spencer has been retained and brought on is to ensure that not only are the charges dropped, but the arrest. And you want to speak to that?
Right. I mean, obviously we want the arrest expunged. We want to make sure that he has that nothing should follow him from this because he did nothing wrong. And so that's what we're here for. But the charges were dropped, is that correct? Well, we don't have the documentation yet, but we trust that that's going to happen. Okay, gotcha. Okay. But the record expunged, the arrest record. Yeah, that's the big part here. Thank you, sir.
As you know, the mayor and the chief apologized. Have your clients accepted that apology?
We did. The family spoke with the mayor today. It was a good conversation, but there are still those 2 officers that were fired. What we know is that it wasn't just those 2 officers, and so that's what we communicated to the mayor, that there has to be a deeper dive. And as we continue to investigate, this young man bled and was bleeding and for hours without any medical attention. They left prongs from the tasers in his back without any medical attention. That as he was walking, being, after he's already brutalized, he's already bleeding, blood all over his clothes, that the officer that is taking him to booking is punching him in the back. So his brutalization went beyond what was just caught on video. And so we really, again, want the chief and the mayor to delve deeper. This is the easy fix. The easy fix is to fire the 2 officers that the whole world sees on the video. The deeper dive is to address the culture and what else happened throughout this process. And so oftentimes we're always asked as black people, and we're speaking generally, we're the quickest. Why are you asking us, for forgiveness already?
That's right.
Right? Let us process. But we're the ones that are supposed to always jump to, I forgive. And everybody here, we're God-fearing folk, but give us a chance to process. Don't ask for our forgiveness just yet until we forgive when we feel like there is justice, not just because of 1 or 2 trinkets. What's happened to this family, he's going to have to live with. This family has to deal with. They see that video, the difficulty in eating, all of, just being able to process this. So I just, again, would hold off on asking, forgiveness and those kinds of things. That's premature.
And tonight she spoke to the mayor also. It was a good conversation. You want to comment on?
So, I spoke to the mayor today. It was very good. I just want to put out there, Officer Jones was disgusting. He did the worst things imaginable. When walking me and Messiah off, he says that he was gonna shoot us. Like, this is stuff that shouldn't be said after all the trauma. After the trauma that's been on video, and then he goes back and he says this as we're still trying to even process what even happened. I still can't even process what happened. And for someone to say something like that is disgusting. We felt like we were gonna die in that car. So for him to walk us off and say, oh, we were gonna shoot y'all, that's not cool. That's not something that should be said. After all of this, no. So Officer A. Jones, that's who I have a very big issue with. All the other officers as well. But him, yes.
And then I want to remind y'all, she didn't get charged. All the stuff you saw in that video, that harsh attack, she also got slammed on the ground after, handcuffed, picked up off the ground, put in a paddy wagon for hours, tasered, and then they came and cut him off her and let her out the back by the Phillips Arena. And she kept asking, what did I do? Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest? What did I do? She's in the back of a paddy wagon, trapped with 4 other women, and they wouldn't provide masks to them. And she kept asking for a mask, because they're in a small, hot van.
And I have asthma.
And she has asthma, and then they just cut her loose. So that's what Attorney Bozeman is talking about, is you have to keep looking down the line of, a lot of people came to the van to check. Why didn't somebody say, hey, this isn't right? Mm-hmm. So.
Have y'all had a conversation with Paul Howard yet about charges?
We met with Mr. Howard and his investigators this morning. They are reviewing and making a determination as to whether there are going to be any charges brought. We are confident. We believe that charges should be brought against the 2 officers that were fired, for starters, but then for other officers as well. And so we don't think there will be any justice without these officers being criminally prosecuted. And I do want to take a moment because I know where this goes. We see this all the time. The character assassination. So let's just clear it up real quick. Messiah Young has never been arrested a day in his life. So let's not do that. Messiah Young had no drugs on his person at all. Let's not do that. The firearm that they yelled out, there's a gun, there was no gun. So we just want to be clear, all of the tricks that Chris and I see played out when our clients are abused and even killed, don't try to use those tricks on these young people. You got the wrong ones this time. These kids are clean. So there is no justification, none whatsoever, for what they did to them and for what this system did to them. So we wanted to put that out because there was, and it's really saddening that certain so-called African-American leaders picked up on there was a gun, and they let that go out without having any fact checking. If there was a gun, best believe this would have had a very different outcome. That was an excuse, a rationale for their treatment that does not stand.
Is litigation forthcoming?
That's why we're here.
There's the answer for that. Because look, here's the thing, and another excuse that people use is, they get lawyers just so they can sue the city. Yes, because a lot of companies and a lot of cities only talk in money. So if you want to talk that talk, then we're going to be having a serious discussion. Because what happens, and I've seen it in cases I've had in other cities, is once they have to actually start writing checks, a chief gets fired. This person changes office. A whole new city council comes because now they can get their platform reform. We're never going to have to do that. So if some people who are selfish and only talk in green, then fine, we're going to hurt you there. But we want change in policies and procedures and laws. It's not hard to fix. Everybody's looking around. Why are people tearing this up? Why are people running around? Because such a simple answer from decision makers can end it all right now. They could have policing fixed in a week if they wanted.
That's right.
But they don't.
Sorry, do you guys have a clear idea of why they stopped their car, Mr. Young's car, versus all the other cars that were in line?
So one of the things that is alarming is this pattern of law enforcement when people began to film their conduct. What people may not have seen was that another Morehouse student who, again, was not involved in any melee, hadn't thrown a brick, a bottle, anything, is talking, just communicating with them, his classmates. And then out of nowhere, law enforcement comes and tackles him to the ground. And so they began to film and try to capture, oh my God, what are they doing? And so as soon as they try to capture that misconduct, they become the victims of the very same kind of misconduct. So we believe that the motivation was, again, to silence, to not capture what we know was happening in the street on Saturday night, on Friday, on Sunday, as it relates to law enforcement, and they're dealing with these young people.
So Mr. Young or Ms. Pilgrim,
Mr. Young had began to try to capture what was happening, and he was targeted. And so we're concerned. Again, we've had a number of lawsuits involving innocent bystanders filming, and then they will become the target of law enforcement excessive force. And that has happened repeatedly in this city, and that's something that has to be addressed.
So what was Mr. Young's initial charge? I know it's suspended, it's dropped, but what was his
It's
initial charge?
fleeing. He was being told to go and then stop and then go and then stop. And if you all watch the video, it's confusing. The only thing that's consistent is the level of aggression from the police. Their commands are inconsistent. Their behavior is inconsistent. The only thing that's consistent is their level of aggression and their determination to hurt or harm or injure, which they have done. He has a fractured arm. He has over 26. He has 20 stitches in his arm with a fracture. And he was heading home.
That's one thing we do want to make clear, and I'm sorry, I'll get to you, Chris, is I saw the comments already, like you said, oh, well, that's what happens when you ride and loot. They weren't at the protests. That people do understand this, right? They weren't protesting. They weren't out there. They were driving around trying to get something to eat and were leaving and got caught in the traffic. So the comments about where they shouldn't have been out there, they were in their car and got caught in traffic. So, go ahead, Christian.
Have y'all had anybody else come to y'all or talk to anyone who was a victim of these, who had a similar story about these officers that night?
I'm going to talk to someone today that got their clavicle broken right outside of Lenox Mall. A young lady lifted up and body slammed on video, and her clavicle is broken. So we have to be clear. The curfew should not have been a license to beat, batter, and maim. Should not have been a license to do that. I know everybody wants to protect the property, and I know that's so critically important. But this wasn't a license to do what they did to these young people.
At the time, were they aware that there was a curfew?
They had become aware. They were driving to get something to eat. And so by this time, it's 9:15, and they're in traffic. So the idea that you can't go get something to eat in your car. They're not out protesting. They're not out running around with us. They're just trying to go home. It could have happened not any of you all. It could have happened to any young black or brown person.
Yeah. And another thing, I got that notice at like 8:50, and I've been driving somewhere. I got it at 8:50. Tanaya has an out-of-state cell phone number. She never even saw this notice. So the kids were already out. I mean, if a curfew suddenly pops up, and this was the first day it was instituted. So if you're caught out already at 8:59, what are you supposed to do? Disappear? If you're out at 9:01, do you now get beaten? I mean, all they have to do in all these situations, talk. The first reaction doesn't have to be throw a punch or try and break a window. Just talk and say, go home. How is that irrational?
There was a report that they disabled the vehicle as well by not just breaking the glass, but slashing the tires. Is that true?
Yes.
You can see it on the video.
They slash the tires. They break out all the windows. I mean, if you just watch the video, how do you describe that behavior other than barbaric? That's barbaric behavior. Based on what? Two unarmed college students in a car in traffic. I mean, the rationale, and it's important for us to really grasp that that's only permissible when you look like us. I mean, it just doesn't happen consistently to anyone else. It doesn't. One more question.
What are the ages?
Messiah just turned 22.
22?
I'm 20. I turned 20 in January.
20 and 22. And you guys dating?
Yeah.
And he felt the need, once he saw what was happening and he was feeling the pain of being tased, he felt the need to try to protect her. I mean, this is what we want. I have a 20 and 22-year-old. This is the kind of son we want. And then you do that to him? He's trying to protect this sister? We really need to dig deep, tell the full story on this one, you all.
And you have to understand it's one of those situations. What higher standard do you want? This is the niece of a prosecutor, a former prosecutor here. I mean, what more do you want?
Just to get to know them a little bit more, where were you guys going to school for? Or what are you in school for? And where are you guys from?
My major is psychology with a concentration in mental health, and I'm from San Antonio, Texas.
I'm going to give you guys my Morehouse introduction. My name is Messiah Young. I'm a 22-year-old senior from Chicago, Illinois, currently studying business management. Thank you.
Just as we wrap this up, as Attorney Bozeman said, I'm sorry, as Attorney Davis said, don't use this, the knuckleheads out there, don't try and use these kids' names as an excuse to distract the topic from the tragedy that happened. It's a game, and we've caught on to that extremely quickly, the distraction of tearing stuff up, or using our clients' names in vain in all the cases we have to distract from change and what's going on, so that the only thing y'all air instead of this press conference is one car on fire. So to all the people out there that are trying to distract, it's not going to work.
Tonight, what year are you?
Hi, I'm a senior. Yeah.
And we do want to just lift up the family in the name of George Floyd, clients of the Stewart law firm. We just want to lift that name up so that we can refocus about what all of this is about. Thank you all very much.
Chris, are you involved in the Auburn case as well?
Yeah.
You have been watching a press conference outside of Morehouse College. We heard a culmination of both the parents of the two college students from Morehouse, Messiah Young and Spellman, Tanaya Pilgrim. Both had some stunning allegations against the Atlanta Police Department.